Hello, my name is Dr. Abigail. I'm a clinical psychologist. I just want to put a little bit of thinking out there regarding why people don't follow advice in lockdown. I've been doing some research about the psychology of social rules and following them, and a few things have come up which are quite interesting. So firstly, one of the things to hold in mind is the message itself about lockdown being clear. So precisely what is meant and what is not meant. So all these people went up Snowdon, but actually they weren't going against the message, because it said you could have one walk a day, and they thought, well, we'll just go up and we'll keep a couple of metres away from everybody else. So really, I think this is down to the government to make the message very, very clear and very, very precise about what you can do and can't do. Even now, they're not saying don't go in your car and drive. They're saying essential travel, but that is so subjective. Is it essential that I need to take the dogs out and drive? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So I think it's important that rather than just blaming the people who aren't following this, we think about, well, is the message clear and concrete enough and not open too much to interpretation? Number two, is the message relevant? So again, so much from the government was talking about herd immunity. Let's get people covered and then we'll just have the vulnerable people in lockdown. So there's a real message about, well, if you're not old and not at risk, then that's okay. You don't need to be worried and you probably need to catch this. And I think if they then do a 360 and say, well, suddenly you've got to lock down, it's unsafe for everybody else, that's quite a change in what the message was. And this whole relevancy is now starting to be more in the news, with younger people getting poorly and people saying, well, don't go out because you could give it to your vulnerable grandmother. That, again, is a change. Unfortunately, I don't think that was in place to start with. So for a lot of people, the message was like, well, it's not that relevant to me. I can get it and I'll be fine. And I do think that was going back to point one, where the message wasn't really clear enough. So another thought is sense of cohesiveness in society. Unfortunately, in the UK, we don't have such a sense of cohesiveness as maybe they do in China. This idea that you do things for yourself is so much apparent here. Some of the Thatcherism time was talking about, well, there's no such thing as society, it's all individuals. So that idea that we are of the herd, we are of a group, isn't so prevalent here. In China, there's a particular process in society where the individual is not celebrated. It's about being part of a group and doing something for everybody. And that's a mentality that was there before the coronavirus. And maybe something that we can bring in a little bit more now, to think we are part of society. We need to do our part. We're not just individuals looking after ourselves. But I think within our culture, this sense of cohesiveness wasn't as strong. This sense of being part of something wasn't as strong as it could be. And unfortunately, it meant that people didn't always think, well, I belong to society and I need to protect other people. Another point is thinking about positive and negative reinforcement. As human beings, we do things that are going to make us feel good, and we keep away and move away from things that are aversive. This is very much at work with regard to whether people are following the lockdown. I want to go out for a walk. I want to go to shop to get my packet of crisps. Well, that's a nice reward. And to not do it, there's no negativity there. There's nothing in place. So positive reinforcement to go and walk up Snowdon, it feels good. And to stay at home doesn't particularly feel good. So there's no reason for them to stay at home. But the government are now using this idea of positive and negative reinforcement. Well, if you go out, you're going to get fined. So therefore, going out and having a negative fine is a reinforcement to stay at home now. So they're using these behavioural strategies. And also, I think in the media, they're talking about, well, don't go out because you could catch the coronavirus and give it to somebody else that could die. So trying to use that and saying, well, you might be okay, but there's going to be a negative effect of you going out. And please hold that in mind. But as human beings, we do what feels good and we move away from what doesn't feel good. And I think it's very hard for a lot of people, myself included, to stay at home so much because it doesn't always feel good if we're used to going out. So those negative and positive behavioural reinforcements are at play as well. So personality, we all have different kinds of personalities, but we know there's a particular type of personality, and we call it having a sense of entitlement. I don't need to follow the rules of other people. I can just do what I want, and it does tap in a little bit to my sense of cohesiveness. If you have that kind of personality where it really is looking after number one, it's not having as much compassion about other people, and there's maybe a sense of entitlement, rules don't really apply to me, then that's going to make it much harder for you to follow these rules in the lockdown, because it's based on the idea that we have compassion, we have caring for our fellow human beings. So it might be that somebody doesn't sit well with their personality because they are being encouraged to follow the rules and they may not think the rules apply to them. So therefore, what we need to do is really help these individuals think about the rules do apply to you, and that it is about your neighbours and your family that could get sick as well. And my final thought is that we need something that will help us suffer the lockdown, because it can suffer at times. We need a greater meaning, something, a greater good, something that will hook into our values. And I think the government are doing that quite well in the media, because they're saying, stay at home, protect the NHS. I mean, those words are brilliant. Protect. By staying at home, we are protecting. And what we need to do is sit at home on our bums, watch Netflix, stay at home with the family, maybe go out in the garden if we have one. But we need to think in a way that this isn't about us, this is about the higher good. And a lot of us need the NHS for all different kinds of things. So rather than saying protect your neighbours, which doesn't work so much because we haven't got that sense of cohesiveness in point 3, it's protect the NHS, protect the health service, which we all need. So that's really good, and that can help us stay in, to think about we're protecting something that we value and cares for our loved ones. Stay home, protect the NHS. Thank you.